This is Jeff Mucci, RCR Wireless News. We're in Palo Alto today meeting with Trevor Fiatal, who is CTO and co-founder of 7 Networks.
Good morning, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
I was at Barcelona last week, and I heard some pretty big announcements from 7. The first one was about Ping. Can you tell us a little about what Ping is?
So for years, 7 has been building push infrastructure and push services to enable all sorts of applications on mobile networks. And Ping is our initiative to bring those services to the larger market, to make the things that we do that are different from building just a basic mobile application available to the entire developer community, to enable other developers to take advantage of the push infrastructure that we've built.
So how would a developer take advantage of that platform?
So, as an example, Samsung at Mobile World Congress announced that their big announcement of the year, the Wave device and the BATA platform, will have Ping built in. And in fact, the services that they're announcing as a core part of that, their social networking service, their push email service, and all of those things are actually built on 7 technology. So it's very exciting for us to have Ping validated by the number 2 handset manufacturer in the world to show that this is a technology that is not something that is just trivial to do, and that it is something that even Samsung came to us and said, we need the level of stuff that you're offering and the richness of the solution that you provide.
So how is the BATA platform integrated in with your platform? Are they one and the same, or is it built on top of the other?
We're actually fairly deeply integrated with the BATA platform. If you think of a mobile development platform, you have certain things like the ability to install a program and the ability to access certain services, and those are fundamental to the platform. What we do is provide a set of key enabling services for the BATA platform that enables Samsung to deliver push email, contacts and calendar sync, and other core services for their own applications, as well as our Ping service powers their social networking solution. And so it's used to enable push delivery of notifications for things that happen in your social networking space outside of the inefficient and battery-consuming polling mechanism that a lot of social networking apps use.
Okay, so when you talk about the developer community, will the Samsung Store BATA platform will the developer community be writing to your platform? Help me understand how it plugs into the developer community at the developer level.
Sure. So it's early days in terms of our agreements with Samsung, and we're certainly working through a lot of the details still. We've been working with Samsung, in secret for a number of months now to get this done. But the direction that things are heading is that the BATA platform will provide a set of push services that you will have available as a developer that will enable you to enable your application such that you know that you have an app on the device, there's data out on the internet that needs to get there. When that data changes, your app needs to know about it. And rather than having your app run in the background and constantly wake up the radio and pull the internet for information, the BATA platform will enable you to simply point at it and say, tell me when that thing changes, and to generate changes to you so that most of the time your application is just sitting there waiting for something to happen. It's not burning radio, it's not burning CPU on the phone, delivering a better user experience, because even if you poll every 15 minutes, it's 96 times a day it's going to wake up and use the radio, right? Yeah. And most of those times nothing is going to have happened, and most of those times it'll have been 5, 10, 15 minutes since the interesting thing actually happened. What we do is we turn it on its head. We say, your application should be able to say, tell me when that thing happens, and then do nothing, and then within a minute or two, learn of the change and engage the user. Because user engagement is really the key to driving the experience on these rich mobile devices. And it's not about constantly using the radio and using the screen. It's about doing things at the right time.
What else should people know about the Ping announcement and the Samsung announcement?
So one of the interesting things about our announcement with Samsung is that on one hand, we're powering an awful lot of what they do. We're the email, contacts, calendar sync, and some of the other underlying services for instant messaging. But what we're doing with Ping is broader than just Samsung. This is something that is going to be available through a variety of different ecosystems. And one of the interesting trends is in the mobile space is that you're seeing a shift in power from the guys who formerly dictated everything, which in North America was the operators, right? They said, we want these things on our phones, and they pieced together a product offer to different ecosystem owners. In some cases, this will be the operators. If you look at Verizon and AT&T and Sprint, they're going to continue to have their own product brand and their own mix of features, And you'll see ping used in places like that, where they're using it to power a developer program, to provide as an infrastructure service for their users. On the other hand, increasingly, you're also seeing the handset guys start to get into the ecosystem ownership business and build their own app stores and build their own end-to-end systems because they want to compete against the RIMs and the Apples of the world. And for the last 10 years, what we've been doing at Seven is building the infrastructure that will enable them to do that.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about the history of Seven and how your vision for the company has changed as the operating systems have been opened up at the carrier and handset level, and then as the iPhone was launched and interfacing with Exchange Server.
Sure. So when we first set out in 2000, my co-founder Bill Wynn and I sat down and looked at the things that were going on in the mobile ecosystem. And it was mostly mobile web browsers at that point. It was the very early days for RIM and their pager-like BlackBerry devices back in 2000. And we realized pretty quickly that it was about getting you access to information, not just email, contacts, calendar, but any kind of information in places where you otherwise couldn't get to it, effectively from a mobile device. Fast forward a few years, and those mobile web devices became, loadable software platforms. The first Trios came out, and some of the other applications platforms started to mature, and suddenly we were able to put software at both ends of the equation. We had our service in the middle that facilitated all these connections. We had connectors inside the enterprise and at your desktop at home that gave you access to the data. And now we had software on the handset as well. Yep. And that was a big change for us that really opened up a lot of possibilities for the sorts of things that we could do. And as a result, we were able to shift over from simply enabling access to general data to delivering specific applications and enabling those. But from the beginning, the whole idea was to build a general purpose information delivery infrastructure that enabled you to subscribe to data sources and have them pushed to your phone and have them presented in an interesting way. And the thing that changed around the iPhone timeframe was two things, really. One is that the market became increasingly aware that the story we'd been telling for a number of years around you have one life with different contexts in it. You have your work context, and you have your family context, and you have your personal life in general context. And these are different things that you could join them all together in one device. And you could have your email inbox next to your personal inbox, next to your throwaway inbox for your eBay auctions. And to have those all in one place and delivered to you instead of having to go to different applications to get them, or to even carry two different devices, an enterprise device and a personal device. And as a result, it shifted less from being about being an enterprise experience or a personal experience to about being a good user experience and delivering that in the most effective way. And so with that, and with the 3G networks that came with it, we really saw a big shift towards, focusing on the user experience, good battery life, presenting the data in an interesting way, engaging the user. And turns out the thing we've been working on all along, all this push infrastructure to deliver this stuff, is the number one best way to engage the user. It's not to, the way to engage the user is not to write 5 applications that all pull the network from your device and run your battery down in 3 hours. Right? I mean, it does interesting things up until it runs out of battery. The way to engage the user is to have applications that can have smarts out on the network and on the phone, and have them able to actually have data delivered to the phone and have them do things in a very interesting and relevant way.
When you started the business, you focused on the enterprise customer. And what we've seen over the past couple of years is what I call the consumerism of IT.
Absolutely.
Where do you see the future of enterprises allowing employees to bring their own phones and yet protecting the enterprise data?
Yeah, that's a great question because I actually spent a lot of time thinking about that and working on it. The interesting shift, as you point out, is that in the last several years, enterprises have moved largely away from wanting to do capital and manpower-intensive fleet management, where they buy a bunch of devices and issue them to users like they do with laptops. And increasingly what they want instead is to define safe behavior for the devices that people bring and allow them to bring them and attach them to the enterprise. And increasingly, enterprises will pay for your data plan, but they expect you to bring your own phone. And they expect that you'll get productivity benefits out of it, and you'll just expense that part of the phone that benefits the enterprise. But the key thing there is the enterprise wants to protect the data that goes onto the phone because that data doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the business that you work for. Your email, your contacts, your calendar, those are all property of the business and not of you. A lot of people feel like it belongs to them. They interact with it and deal with it on a daily basis, but really that's business property. So what the businesses and enterprises we talk to are most concerned about is putting a good boundary around that, putting control over that information, not to block user behavior, but to protect it in case you lose your phone, to be able to protect or even recover that data, to wipe it out in the events that the phone is lost or stolen. And so it's, increasingly, it's less of a focus on prescribing a device and more on prescribing that the device has to behave in certain ways so you can attach it to the enterprise.
Does 7 provide a solution for enterprises to manage their data?
Sure. So what 7 does, we provide a set of enabling applications for enterprises, such as access to email, contacts, and calendar data, and the ability to wrap controls around those. There's 2 different ways that we do that. One is that instead of being, a all-in-one, remote device management company, we realize that from the enterprise perspective, what you really want to do is have control over the enterprise information that goes to the device and the ability to limit and control how that moves on and off the device, not necessarily how the user accesses it, but to make sure that, it's used in an appropriate way and that it can't be transferred off to the device, and that if you lose your device, that it can be protected. Mm-hmm. And so what we do is we enable things like remote wipe, which is pretty common functionality today.
Yeah.
But increasingly, particularly with things that we're working on, even right now, the ability to do better enterprise policy enforcement, mm-hmm. not just of the boundary around the enterprise information, but in terms of how you use the entire device. The ability to enforce things like, the use of personal versus enterprise accounts on the device, the ability to transfer email to another device, or to transfer enterprise data off the device.
Interesting. You've talked about several different distribution strategies.
Mm-hmm.
Samsung, which I would call as a handset strategy. You talked about an operator strategy.
Yep.
You talked about an enterprise strategy. And in many respects, you have a consumer strategy. As you look at 2010, 11, and 12, where do you see the pull-through? Which of those channels mm-hmm. do you really see being the pull-through for 7?
So we do have a complex ecosystem that we work in. We really only have 2 channels that we principally look at, the enterprise and the operator. Sorry, not the enterprise. Now you've got me thinking about the enterprise. The OEM channel, basically the guys that own entire device ecosystems, the folks who are looking at what the Apples and the Rims of the world are doing and saying, wow, services are a big part of our success going forward, and we really need to control a part of that. And then on the other side, the operators, particularly the large operators, who are defining their product offers and are doing rich and innovative things to bring services to their customers. And as we discuss it internally at 7, one of the things that we've realized is that we have to make the operators, we have to make the ecosystem owners happy, right? Because they're the ones that directly buy our product and sell it. Mm-hmm. We have to get the folks in between excited, the product managers and the buyers at the enterprises and the individual consumers, but it's the end user that we really have to satisfy. Because at the end of the day, it's about the experience for the end user. It's about doing good things for the person who uses the product every day. The millions of people who use 7 products every day are the most important ones in the entire value chain. And so everything we do, regardless of channels, focused on delivering a good experience to the user, mm-hmm. and everything flows back from that.
Okay. In closing, I'd like to talk a minute about your capital partners. You were the founder of the company 10 years ago.
Correct.
You've got some top-tier investors,
mm-hmm.
Ignition, Grey Rock, MC Partners, Amadeus.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us some examples of how they've helped you steer the ship over the past
Absolutely.
10 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, it's great to have active board members who are well connected in the industry. And in particular, Ignition has been, really key for us, as well as, David Z at Greylock, for doing introductions when we need it, for keeping us connected to what's going on in the industry, mm-hmm. and in particular for that kind of cross-company connectivity at the board level that's so important when you live in an ecosystem where everybody touches everybody else. Mm-hmm. So when we have things to discuss with companies that we may only have had incidental contact with in the past, for example, if I need a meeting with Paul Jacobs at Qualcomm, or if I need to talk to a particular VP at Microsoft, it's great to have folks on the board who are able to facilitate that. And then coming the other direction, it's also great to have those relationships in place because they bring perspective and awareness of what's going on because of their interactions with the industry, because of their higher strategic viewpoint of the things that we need to focus on. And without, it enables us to, be aware of what both the competition and, our, more friendly companies that we work with are doing, and to be better aligned with the industry.
Okay. I know we're running out of time here, but there are two other areas I'd like to explore
Sure.
with you. Number one, profitability.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you at in terms of your financial business plan?
So we are on track for our first full year, 4 sequential quarters of profitability. And, in the economic climate of the last couple of years, we think that's quite an achievement. Mm-hmm. Even though, a lot of the areas of the economy have been very difficult for folks, the wireless sectors continue to be, quite energetic. Mm-hmm. And we've been able to continue to grow our business and, year over year and quarter over quarter and drive towards that all-important profitability goal. And we're on track for achieving our goals.
Good. And then prior to founding Seven, you were the system architect of Excited Home.
Correct.
And for 3 years took it from 250,000 subscribers to, I believe you said, 5 million subscribers.
Yep.
It sounds like that experience that was much more consumer-facing
mm-hmm.
has to have been very valuable to you in terms of providing a user-friendly type experience today. Can you talk about what you learned then
mm-hmm.
that you're applying today?
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned, it was a bit of a wild ride. It was a very fast growth curve that I actually experienced twice. First, when At Home and Excite were separate companies, when I was with At Home and growing the cable modem side of the business. And then again, when I moved into a more strategic role covering both companies after we merged with Excite. And having 28 data centers worldwide, most of which were lights-out data centers that I'd never seen, enabled me to, develop skills around basically managing large-scale services and very rapidly growing things and learning to focus on the motivations behind what people do. Because if you understand why people are demanding a service and why they're using it a particular way, you can plan better for the things that come down the road. And so learning to get ahead of consumer demand and ahead of the way that people are actually behaving in a changing world turned out to be probably the most useful skill set that I developed there. In a very rapidly growing environment, if you're not anticipating where things are going to go and looking it down the road towards what's the next thing coming instead of just reacting to what's in front of you, you're going to have a very difficult time keeping up with the competition.
That's great. Trevor, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.